there, I'm Chase Sr. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports, and no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, I greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, we are going to preview this Week 9 matchup, Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars at Lincoln Financial Field, and there are a lot of storylines that go with this game. The Birds are hot. The Jags are not. Doug Peterson making his return. More on that in a moment, but the Eagles are going to be looking fresh in front of the home crowd in South Philadelphia because this week marks the return of the Kelly Green uniforms. The Eagles will be wearing these once again. Last year they went undefeated in the Kelly Greens, and they won a couple of marquee games against the Miami Dolphins, against the Buffalo Bills in overtime. That was this photo right here where Jalen Hurts, with the Eagles down by 3, ran it in on the quarterback draws. The rain was falling in South Philadelphia. The Eagles at that point were hot. And Jalen Hurts was the odds-on favorite to win NFL MVP. As we know, the Eagles kind of free-falled after that, but those jerseys certainly were looking cool. And then A.J. Brown, after he caught a touchdown pass last year, getting the fans amped up. I really do firmly believe that the Kelly Green uniforms, some of the cleanest jerseys in all of sports. What is interesting, though, that I've seen this in the comments section from a lot of people, where they say the Eagles have to continue to wear midnight green as their primary uniforms because since they've won midnight green jerseys, it's been multiple eras of winning, whereas those Kelly Green jerseys, they were marked and remembered for a lot of losing years. I'm fine with the midnight green unis. I think they're really cool. I also like how the Eagles can mix and match the helmets with the black helmet or the black pants, going all white. And then sometimes they can alter those jerseys a little bit. But from time to time, you got to be able to switch it up and throw it back to the Kelly Greens. And forget about the losing era. It's a new era. Speaking of eras, Doug Peterson making his return to Philadelphia, where he is a statue outside of Lincoln Financial Field alongside Nick Foles. It was him relaying the Call Philly special to Foles, the only coach in the history of this great organization that has hoisted the Lombardi Trophy. What a night that was in February of 2018 to cap off a magical 2017 campaign. Forever grateful to Doug Peterson. One of the best nights of my life when the Eagles won that Super Bowl, dethroning Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. As for the current day, Philadelphia hosting Jacksonville here. Kickoff slated for Sunday, November 3rd. 4:05 p.m. Eastern is when this game will get underway. It originally was supposed to be a Sunday night game. It got taken out of that time slot. The over-under, 45.5, and Philadelphia 8-point favorites in this ball game. Of course, we'll be doing another watch party for it right here on the program, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can join us, the best place to experience an Eagles game day outside of being at the actual game. But also, if you hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications, and subscribe anytime we push out a show, anytime we go live, you'll be notified. Show gets underway on Sunday with an hour and 5-minute pregame show where we'll preview this ball game, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you there. Philadelphia right now on a roll as we officially begin our preview. The Eagles have won 3 games in a row. They have found their identity seemingly on both sides of the football. And what has been key for the Eagles during this 3-game winning streak in which they've beaten the Browns, Giants, and Bengals, Jalen Hurts, first and foremost, playing really well. And he's playing smart football and clean football. No turnovers during this winning streak. He has 9 combined touchdowns, 0 giveaways. I also really like how Philadelphia has had a very balanced offense, and depending on the opponent, their game plan changes. Against the Browns, they were balanced. Hurts found success through the air. Eagles found success on the ground. Against New York, one of the top defenses in the NFL, the Eagles ran right through New York, and Saquon Barkley had a career game, and Hurts was efficient, but he didn't have to throw the football all that much against one of the top pass rushes in the NFL. Then against Cincinnati, Hurts was fantastic. He completed 80% of his passes. He combined for 4 total touchdowns, and Saquon Barkley once again surpassing the century mark, but you also had contributions from everywhere. A.J. Brown, another good game. Devontae Smith popped off. Grant Calcaterra was really good. And so this Eagles team is really playing complementary football right now. And speaking of that, During this 3-game winning streak, this Eagles defense has turned the corner, and they've really been sound at all 3 levels. Young defenders have been balling, and since Nick Sirianni was on the hot seat after that Browns victory coming out of the bye week when he was beefing with Eagles fans following the game on the sideline, this team has responded very well to the Eagles head coach. So here the Eagles are going into week 9, 5-2. Quality win over the Green Bay Packers, who have been on a tear. And I think Green Bay is one of the top teams in the NFL. So that's a really good win for Philadelphia. The back-breaking, heartbreaking loss against the Falcons in week 2. The Eagles are a dropped Saquon Barkley pass away from being 6-1 this year. They went on the road facing adversity, beat the Saints by 3, injury rattled against the Buccaneers. They got blown out, and then those 3 straight dubs. Browns, Giants, Bengals, looking to make it 4 in a row against Jacksonville. The Jags so far are 2-6. It's been a very disappointing season for them. They have a lot of money invested into Trevor Lawrence, who they give a contract extension to. They have a lot of talent on offense. Their defense has some marquee players too, but they just got off to an awful start. 4 losses in a row to kick off the 2024 campaign. Against Miami, where they had a lead, against the Browns, close loss, blown out against Buffalo, close loss against Houston, 3-point win over Indy, blown out in London against the Bears, dominant win over the Patriots, and they were in that game on the road against Green Bay last week. And my read on the Jags, this is a talented team that's lost a lot of close games. They have shot themselves in the foot. Trevor Lawrence hasn't developed. And there's been some chatter about Doug Peterson being on the hot seat. I think he definitely is, even though the owner, Shad Khan, gave him a ringing endorsement. But what we're seeing with the Jags right now is what we saw at the end of Doug Peterson's tenure, where they're a little bit sloppy, they make avoidable mistakes, and they suffer self-inflicted wounds. And at the end of the day, that kind of falls on the head coach. But he's drawn up some good plays, and the Jags have had pretty good offensive performances, but he hasn't been helped out by Trevor Lawrence like he wasn't helped out by Carson Wentz. 8 games this year for Lawrence. His completion percentage is well below what it should be at 62.5%. He's thrown for 1,800 plus yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks, not bad. Yards per attempt at 7.6, but the eye test is really what has been concerning because he's missed a lot of wide open throws. I will say over his last 5 games, and Chip will love this because he went to Clemson and loves Trevor Lawrence, 8 touchdowns, 3 picks. And the Jags in those last 5 games have scored 27 plus points in 3 of those matchups. So they have turned the corner a little bit, and they have some really good talent on the offensive side of the football, including their first-round pick, Brian Thomas out of LSU. He's been one of the top rookies in this 2024 class offensively, and he looks to be a number 1 wideout. They lose Calvin Ridley to the Tennessee Titans. They replace him with Brian Thomas, and honestly, the production has been just as good, if not better. And, of course, Thomas is the cheaper player. 33 catches, 573 yards, 17.3 yards per catch, 5 touchdowns. He could take the top off of the defense. He's physical, and you have to remember, too, Trevor Etienne, pretty solid player as well. As for the Eagles' injury news, is it Trevor Etienne? Travis Etienne. Trevor Etienne is his brother who plays for Georgia. Eagles' injury news. Mekhi Becton returned to practice this week. So he had a concussion. He suffered that against the Giants 2 weeks ago. Did not play against Cincinnati. Good to see him back at practice, although, as we talked about on the show, Tyler Steen, I'm getting my names all mixed up. Trevor Lawrence, Tyler Steen. ETNs. My goodness, Chase, get it together. Tyler Steen played really well in the place of Mekhi Becton, I thought, against Cincinnati. Darius Slay did not practice, groin injury. He left that Bengals game. Isaiah Rodgers came in, had that wonderful play on Jamar Chase to force that interception that fell into the hands of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Dallas Goedert did not participate as of this recording. Hamstring injury. I still expect him to potentially miss this Jags game. Greg Calcaterra stepped in. He's played very well. And not sure what's going on with Jalen Carter, but he did not participate early this week in practice either, so we will monitor the statuses for all of these players here. As for some notable roster news for Jacksonville, Christian Kirk last week against Green Bay broke his collarbone, and so he's going to be out possibly for the remainder of the season. And then you rarely see offensive linemen, especially offensive tackles, get traded in season, but the Jags are kind of selling already going into Tuesday's NFL trade deadline. They traded Cam Robinson away to the Minnesota Vikings after the Vikings learned that Christian Darrisaw is out for the year after he hurt his knee in Week 8. Plenty more to get to here on the show as we preview this Eagles-Jags game. But first, who you got? JAC for Jacksonville, PHI for Philadelphia. I'll give you my score prediction coming up here just around the corner. Today's Philadelphia Eagles Now, sponsored by our friends at Game Time. They specialize in last-minute tickets and last-minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed. Prices drop on the Game Time app as the event gets closer, and I love this app for so many reasons. Easy to use, great user interface, great deals, flash deals, plenty of tickets to all types of events like sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, and theater events. I also love how you can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Jags Eagles, if you want to go, plenty of tickets available at all types of different price points and levels, and there is an example of how you can see the price point and the vantage point from those seats. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply. First purchase only. What time is it? Game time. All right, to the back end of our preview. The Philadelphia Eagles have to do these following things in order to be victorious against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Week 9. And Philadelphia is really on a roll right now, looking for 4 dubs in a row. And if they beat Jacksonville, they're in an excellent position to make the playoffs and to compete for this division and potentially win the NFC at 6-2. The Philadelphia Eagles, ladies and gentlemen, are 9-2 since the start of the 2023 season when passing for 250-plus yards. That is 4th best in the NFL during that time frame. The Jags, on the other hand, have allowed 249.8 passing yards per game since 2023. That is the 2nd worst mark in the NFL. So if Jalen Hurts is able to have success through the air and he can hit some explosives to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and others, it points to the Eagles being able to pull out a victory here. Philadelphia is also undefeated when forcing 1 or more turnovers this year. And we know that Trevor Lawrence can put the ball in harm's way. That's been the case throughout his career. With interceptions and fumbles, ball security is a problem. And the Eagles are 12-3 when forcing 1 or more turnovers since the start of last season. The Jags have 21 turnovers since the start of 2023. That is tied for 4th most in the NFL. So it's not just Lawrence. Ball security is a problem for that offense in general. And this is a Jacksonville team where when you watch them, you're like, they have some players. They're really talented on both sides of the ball, but they always shoot themselves in the foot. Offensively, they're turning it over. In the red zone, they're inefficient. Defensively, they just aren't coached well enough. Defensive coordinator has been a problem under Doug Peterson. He's had to run through a couple of them. And this is an example of that. The Jags have turned it over on downs 9 times in the red zone since 2023. That's the most in the NFL. So Dougie P is still very aggressive like he was in Philadelphia, but they haven't converted on those 4th down attempts. Tied for the 4th most turnovers in the game the last 2 years. Not a sustainable way to play. And this year, the Jags have held leads, and they've been in a lot of games. They simply haven't been able to close, and a big reason for that, them making mistakes, them turning the ball over, leaving meat on the bone, and leaving money on the table. For this Eagles offense, what I've really loved during this 3-game winning streak, Jalen Hurts is playing clean football, 9 combined touchdowns, 0 giveaways during this winning streak. The play action has really opened things up in the pass game and in the run game, and that includes Jalen Hurts taking snaps from under center. And we saw against the Bengals that Kellen Moore called a couple of those plays, and it led to big plays for this Eagles offense. This Eagles offensive line, even though against Cincinnati, they're without Jordan Mailata and Mekhi Becton, they are playing bully ball when they're at full strength or even when they have backups. And when this Eagles offensive line can insert its dominance and they get their confidence going, they just wear down teams throughout the course of a 60-minute ball game, and they sense that, and then they're just thirsty for blood. And so this Eagles team is a team right now that has this identity of explosive plays downfield in the pass game. They're incorporating more play action. Jalen Hurts out of the shotgun under center. That makes the Eagles a little bit more difficult to guard. Saquon Barkley is having an NFL Offensive Player of the Year type of season. And so the Eagles have become a team that's very difficult to defend. Elsewhere, A.J. Brown right now, according to Pro Football Focus, the highest graded wide receiver in the NFL. And his completion percentage when targeted is also so high up there. And basically what that means, he's catching balls that a lot of other wide receivers aren't able to catch and do not catch. And it just speaks to his physical dominance, his ball tracking skills, and his sure hands. It was also really good to see Devontae Smith pop off against Cincinnati. Up until last week, he had a silent year, dealt with the concussion against New Orleans, against Tampa Bay, but that's the player that he's capable of being. And when the Eagles are more well-rounded, that's when they're at their best. Greg Calcaterra, I see you, son. Dallas Goedert goes out. He has been a very viable pass-catching target for Jalen Hurts, who has trusted him. And the backups on this Eagles team in general have really stepped up. And Nick Sirianni talked about this week. Tyler Steen at right guard. Fred Johnson at left tackle. He gave up one pressure when he was one-on-one with Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson is one of the top edge rushers in the game. And then defensively, a player like Isaiah Rodgers has to step in for Darius Slay after he left that game with the groin injury. Forces the interception with sticky coverage on Jamar Chase. As for this Eagles defense, what I love right now, the pass rush has gotten going. 5 sacks against Cleveland, 8 against New York, 1 against Cincinnati. I wouldn't be overly concerned by that. The game plan for the Bengals, get rid of the ball quickly. But this pass rush is starting to turn the corner, and these young defensive linemen are really developing before our eyes. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they are studs in the secondary, playing elite football right now. I like what Vic Fangio is doing with timely blitz calls here and there. Historically hasn't been a defensive coordinator who dials up a lot of pressure, but he's doing it in moments that have been beneficial for Philadelphia, and he's also mixing up his coverages and his personnel. That is the formula for being a really good team, where you are well-rounded, you are loaded with talent, you're balanced, deep, complementary, and you are well-coached. And I think that's a big reason why the odds makers have Philadelphia with the third best odds to win the NFC. Now, the Detroit Lions right now are the best team in the NFC. The 49ers, 500, they're leaky a little bit. They've had to deal with a lot of injuries. They haven't played up to their level, but the odds makers like San Francisco because, let's face it, they're extremely talented, and if they can get it together, they're a dangerous team. But for Philadelphia to have 7-1 odds right now, it goes to show you that they're impressing a lot of people. As for how the Eagles stack up as a team, offensively, they are 10th in points per game at 24.4, and hopefully they're going to start peaking here very soon. They're 8th in yards per game, 367.1, 12th in yards per play, 21st on third down, sub 37%. That's a red flag. They need to be better there, and they're 19th in the red zone. So Philadelphia can really cure some of their third down issues and red zone problems. They can be a borderline unstoppable offense, which is what I meant by hoping that they peak at some point soon, which is the time where you want to peak because you never want to peak too early. Defensively, how about these numbers for Vic Fangio's defense? 7th in points per game, 7th in yards per game, 6th in yards per play, 20th on third downs. They've struggled to get off the field on some of the money downs, but when teams get inside the red area, the Eagles do a good job of forcing field goals and not letting them find pay dirt. 42.8%, 6th best in the NFL. The Jags, Very average football team. 21st in points per game at 21.5. 14th in yards per game at 339.9. They are 10th in yards per play at 5.8, but they're not good on third downs. 29th, sub 32% there. And then they also struggle in the red zone. Middle of the pack, 55.1% for their red zone touchdown percentage. Defensively, legitimately one of the worst units in the entire National Football League. 29th among 32 teams in points per game allowed at 28 even. 29th in yards per game. 31st in yards per play. 25th in third down percentage. And 28th in the red zone. So Philadelphia's offense is going to have an opportunity in Doug Peterson's return to Philadelphia to smack the Jacksonville Jaguars. And so my keys to the game: continue to stay balanced. Brian Baldinger had a very interesting tweet, and I want to pull it up here on the fly as we're recording this show, because Philadelphia, among some of the best teams in the NFL, they have a high run percentage. And highest percentage of run teams through 8 weeks, Philadelphia Eagles 55%, number one in the NFL. They're 5-2. Steelers 54%. They are 6-2. Ravens 52%, 5-3. This might come as a surprise. The Detroit Lions, who are just lighting up the scoreboard of late, 52% run. They are 6-1, and the Commanders 6-2. There are other teams, Buffalo, Kansas City, Chargers, Green Bay, Minnesota, San Francisco, all flirting at 50%. Those are all some of the best teams in the NFL. And so I want to see Philadelphia stay balanced. And I've made this point of late, even if the run doesn't work, stick with it. Because this Eagles offensive line at some point is going to figure it out. They're going to open up a hole for Saquon Barkley, and he's too good to be held in check throughout 4 quarters. He's going to pop off a long run at some point, and that run can change the complexion of the game. And then that run sets up the pass for Jalen Hurts, and now that they're incorporating more play action against a bad defense like Jacksonville, that's how they can cook. That's how Hurts can cook. For Hurts, play clean ball. 9 combined touchdowns, no giveaways during this winning streak. It's been awesome. Pressure Trevor Lawrence. If you do that, he will fold, and the Jags will turn the ball over. Brian Thomas, more than 500 receiving yards already as a rookie with 5 touchdowns. He is the real deal. Quinyon Mitchell, when matched up against some of the top wideouts in the game, he's been sensational. Great rookie matchup this week. Quinyon, when he matches up with BT. And then ETN, of course, a very good player. And the Jags have been prone to being a sloppy team. If you play into that and you become sloppy as well, that's how you can lose this game. If you play clean and you take care of business and you dominate a bad team that the way that the Eagles should be able to win this ball game in that manner, they'll be victorious. So predict the score. Jags, Eagles, Sunday. We're doing a watch party for this game right here live on Eagles Now. I hope to see all of you there. I'm going with the Birds, and I think that they score a lot of points against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They force a couple of Jags turnovers. They win rocking the Kelly Green unis, and the fans are going to be into it. They'll celebrate Doug Peterson returning, but he doesn't celebrate with the dub. 33-17. Birds move to 6-2.